Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday, everyone. It is that special time. We're going to have a Sunday Q&A. I changed the position of the computer. I've got it elevated, which is awesome. I get to sit on my setan / bed / trundle, whatever you want to call it. First off, we're going to start by, what's going on? Unable to connect with live chat. Okay, we're having a live chat challenge. So I apologize for that. Not quite sure what that's about. I'm going to go ahead and go over here. Oh, there I am. Now I can see you folks. Hello, hello. Let me start. The first thing I'm going to do is say hi to everybody. Then we have a really, really long remote view. We're going to do a summary of about 2.5 years of remote viewing. So I wanted to do this because part of understanding is you go through a period of intense confusion. When you are trying to do remote viewing, and then as you get more and more information, the clouds start to part. So the last couple of days, some clouds started to part, and I really want to share what some of that is about. Okay, so first things first, do we have any volunteers that would like to participate in helping me monitor everything? We will go ahead and we'll get that started. I also want to start saying hi to everybody while we're looking for a monitor. So hello, Abby, Jennifer, Troy, Diane, Hurricane, Pina, hello, Kitty. Oh, anybody named Kitty is a friend of mine. Laura, Wendy, AL, Caroline, Phyllis, Chatty Cathy, woohoo! In Seattle, Noel. Halo Boy. Caroline, hello, okay. Jennifer Joseph, Debbie, hello. We'll be saying hi. We'll continue to say hi as we go along. Carol and Connie and Meg and Tina. M. Floyd. Ansel, hello. Hello to Joan and Barb and Naomi. Eliza. Oh, Naomi's in Germany, hello. And Anne, hello from New Zealand. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And if anybody wants to be a moderator, just let me know. We'll go ahead and make you a moderator as we go along. Also, if anybody would like me to do a couple of tarot readings today, absolutely, I would love to do that for you. But I want to spend at least 15 minutes. For those people who are not into remote viewings, you can come back in 15 minutes. But I have a lot of stuff to go through, so... we're just going to get started. So any volunteers yet for, let me see. Do we have a volunteer yet? Pina, you are up. Congratulate everybody. Pina is one of our moderators today. Thank you, Pina. Hello, Red Gypsy and Rita. Miss Sharon, Mari, Lori, Wayne, Cheyenne, Shayna. Oh, that's a lovely name. Connie and Margaret. Okay. I think we're doing pretty good here. Pina is ready to go. Oh, Mark is here. Thank goodness. I was hoping he'd show up. Hello, Mark. Good to see you. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to switch this up here so I can see better. So we're going to start now with a remote view that is incredibly complicated. It is the best I can do at an objective interpretation. I'm going to give everybody's opinions about what's gone on the last couple of years. I'm not taking any sides. I'm just going to be neutral, and I will let people here go ahead and ask the various different you can criticize the various different arguments. It doesn't offend me at all because I'm only a messenger person. So it's, it's not a competition. If I or another reader look at something different, it doesn't mean we're at war. It just means it didn't show up in that particular reading, or I could have been tired, or so. We're adults here, and sometimes we see stuff, sometimes we don't. Sometimes readers don't agree with each other, and it's not a big deal. All right, so that's what's going on. The first thing that I want to talk about is this feeling that I've been getting for a very long time, and this is a feeling that goes back to before the government shutdown. And that is this increasing feeling that I have been getting that Trump is under some type of control by our intelligence agencies. Remember, I had talked, for those people who have been with the channel for a while, about 6 months ago, I had a vision that Trump was cornered and he was handing his paws like a dog who'd been caught. So that is the energy. It's a feeling of being defeated. It's a feeling of being tired. It's a feeling of being worn out. And it's a feeling also from the intelligence agencies that they have enough information at this time to convict him. So that tells me that the intelligence agencies have all the tapes. They have all the information. They've wrapped up the investigation. Mueller wrapped up the public investigation. The intelligence agencies wrapped up their investigation. And so basically Trump is caught. So yes, Russia tried to compromise him. Other countries tried to compromise him. The Israelis also appear to have had intelligence. They were publicly saying they had tapes on Trump going back to March of 2017. The fact that they were public tells me that they were communicating with the Americans about it. So that's what's going on with Trump. So I just think that, yeah, he's compromised by a lot of people. And I think the intelligence agencies pretty much know everything at this point. The energy around Trump is a feeling of being defeated. And they don't have a lot of time. The Republicans don't have a lot of time to come up with a Republican challenger to get on the primary ballots. So they have to decide quick if that's going to happen. Also, it's now knowledge within the Republican Party, I believe, that this president's been thrown under the bus. So the president's been thrown under the bus. The intelligence agencies have plenty of dirt on him, including tapes. They basically are compromising him just as Russia did, that he will cooperate with this investigation in order to avoid prison. So the other aspect of that is that I'm getting the impression that Putin knows it. So publicly what's going on and privately what's going on are two separate things. Publicly, it looks like everything is fine and Trump's going to be reelected. Privately, it looks like Trump is under the control of the intelligence agencies, that they are hanging, they're now openly threatening him. Putin knows it. And now this brings us to the area of the remote that has caused a lot of confusion. So we're going to break it down after I say everything. And this is going to go on for about 10 minutes, so bear with me. There is a school of politics that's been around for quite a while. It's called political realism. Political realism, Putin and political realism. The first time I was introduced to political realism, I was actually at a Shalom Akshav, Peace Now meeting in Jerusalem. And it was actually the liberals and progressives that were talking about building a polemic society where people of diverse opinions could choose to be nonviolent. I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, you hate me, I hate you, but we're going to agree not to kill each other because there are benefits if we don't kill each other. There are benefits to peace. And so this school is called the School of Realism in Politics. And it's been touted by liberals, it's been touted by conservatives, it's been touted by people in the military, and it's being touted by Vladimir Putin because Russia's broke. Russia cannot continue a Cold War with the United States. Putin wants his trade routes. He cannot continue to pay warmongers and compete with America and NATO. NATO is going to win when it comes to warmongers. And so what's happening is the threats keep escalating back and forth between Russia, the United States, NATO, back and forth, building more and more weapons, more and more weapons. And it's a race war that nobody can win. And the feeling, both from the intelligence agencies, the military, Putin, they're all coming to the same agreement. And the same agreement is that America is bankrupted, that we're trillions of dollars in debt, and that this trillions of dollars has gone to private companies that charge exorbitant prices to supply things for the military. And as a result, money was diverted from things like our schools, our infrastructure, social security, healthcare, etc. So the school of realism is an agreement not to blow each other up, basically. It's an agreement by all parties that while we may not like each other, while we may not be able to stomach each other, we are willing to tolerate one another. This is the school of realism that Putin now presents to us. And he'll come up with any creative way he can to encourage people to agree with him. He'll come up with any creative way he can in order to get people to talk about the school of realism. And to an extent, yes, hijacking this channel. So people who are like, well, Putin hijacked this channel. As you did more and more and more remotes, he took over more and more and more of the channel. We don't have to agree with Putin. We don't have to like his proposal, but we should at the very least be able to examine it objectively and ask ourselves, is this what's good for the planet overall? And should there be consequences for what Putin did by meddling in our elections? And that's a global conversation. So this is the difference he sees between globalism and nationalism. Globalism is, he feels, a bunch of people getting up and bullying him with threats of war and NATO, that you're going to be democratic and you're going to build a system of government that I like, or we're going to go to war with you. And that is why he is using nationalism, or trying to attract Americans towards nationalism and make it attractive to Americans, because we can't financially afford to keep this going. We can't continue financially to keep the war going between these groups. And he's convincing a lot of people in the intelligence agencies and in the military, some of whom don't even necessarily like him, that he's got a point. So that's the school of realism in politics. I know Kissinger is one of the people that is a co-member with Putin of that nonprofit. Putin said, we don't have to like each other to be at peace. That was a direct quote I got last night from last night's remote. So this is also coming from Putin. This is his argument. We can go ahead and tear it apart, like I said, but I will deliver the message. He says that war is expensive. War is expensive, and America is trillions of dollars in debt, and you're bankrupted. America keeps talking about what a wealthy country it is, but the truth of the matter is it's been bankrupted, and it's been bankrupted by giving its money to warmongers. War is expensive, not just for Russia, but for the whole world. War diverts funds that need to go towards the national interest. And may I remind you of what I said about Mongolia. So remember, we went through the Mongolia stuff. Now we're going to go back to what Putin was talking about. When you have war, you divert your funds that could go towards national interest towards war. And the consequences of that are the money is diverted from infrastructure. He talks about infrastructure. So what did Russia do with peace, right? It went into Mongolia and it built infrastructure. The second thing that Putin talked about, the money can go towards education. Remember, he was proud of the education system: reading, writing, arithmetic, multilingual, academics, intellectual, the sciences, reason, teaching people how to reason, teaching people how to be less emotional, less prone to violence. So he wants money to go to infrastructure and education. Remember, that was what he talked about when he talked about Mongolia. Healthcare, remember Mongolia. Remember the propaganda from Mongolia. We brought in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. What are the areas that we're hearing from the realist that where funds are being diverted? Infrastructure, education, and healthcare. And finally, the last thing Putin says, the last two things are human life. Also, if you don't have a child in Afghanistan, this is what the conservatives are that have joined this group. And this is what the military is saying: if you don't have a child in Afghanistan, if you're not crying in your pillow at night, saying the rosary or praying because you're worried your daughter's going to come home in a body bag, I'm sorry, this is what I'm hearing, then that is what people are in the military getting angry about. It's us being carried back in body bags. It's us whose children are coming back. If you don't have a child in the military, if you're not risking anything, let's not be so laissez-faire about war. So the cost in human life. And finally, the last thing that Putin argues for realism is the environmental impact. The environmental impact that he would like to see everybody come together to create realistic ways to help the environment without hurting the economy. So those are his arguments about why we should move towards nationalism, away from globalism and war and blah, 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 blah. The only problem with this argument that I see is that the consequences of what Russia did in interrupting America's political policies, interrupting our elections, is that it took away our free and fair elections, and it stole an election from the person that we voted for. And I personally, if you want I'm not supposed to give my personal opinion on this channel, but I think there have to be consequences for that. Of course, his argument is we've been doing the same thing over there by the CIA, Soros funding democracy movements in Europe. So that's his argument about why the school of realism, you don't have to like me, I don't have to like you, but let's do business. So now that brings us to Tulsi Gabbard. And it brings us to Michael Flynn as well, both of whom have a military background and both of whom seem to be joining the school of realism. But they're joining the school of realism as Democrats. Both were Democrats. And that's because this is apolitical. The decision to decide not to blow each other up and to work together on treaties to allow for open trade routes is really, in a way, apolitical. It's business. And this is something I keep hearing from Putin. It's just business. It's just business. So with Tulsi Gabbard, I didn't get dark, evil forces with Tulsi Gabbard, but what I did get is business, 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 business. So what's going to happen? What do people think is going to happen if we pull troops out of Afghanistan and we pull troops out of Iraq and we withdraw from some of these areas? Well, most likely what's going to happen is that the trade routes, which is where a lot of the bombing is taking place, will have to be secured by a group of people whose job is to simply make sure that people can get their trade to and from these trade routes without anybody being threatened. So that is basically what Putin is presenting. We go to the international community, the Americans, the Russians, the Brits, etc., and we work out strong treaties and we protect the trade routes. We protect these roads and allow everybody to do trade, and we choose peace because of the advantages to peace, and we hold each other accountable for arms race, etc. That seems to be the argument. Tulsi Gabbard is interesting because she appears her energy to be pulled into private contracting. It's interesting because Flynn, Eric Prince, etc., also are with the private contracting. So it appears that the money business of this thing I'm seeing is that they want to pull the troops out, hire contractors who are apolitical, from basically soldiers of fortune from various different countries, to agree to monitor and police the trade routes so that everybody can freely trade, not military trade. We're talking about vodka, steel, etc., that there has to be some agreement that we are not going to harm one another and we are simply going to allow the trade to take place. The confusion we're feeling about Tulsi Gabbard is because there's money to be made if she can leave Congress and start working for one of these private companies. And that is probably where she's headed, because her final outcome in her cards suggests that she's moving towards the private sector, and the amount of money that's going to be made by this more affordable way of pulling back the troops and instead putting in neutral contractors that can secure the trade routes. So this brings us now back to Barack Obama, and the meditations we did on Barack Obama, where he presented himself at the first vision we had was Michelle Obama saying that Barack has post-traumatic presidency disorder. And he's such a reasonable person. He's such a logical person. And such a balanced person, Barack Obama, that if he were having a breakdown, I'm not sure anybody would notice, because, he's so quiet and calm. Let's continue to monitor the situation. And there's a feeling of regret or grief about the bombing of Libya, because to some extent, Obama is a realist as well and feels that he too could have worked out. He was also wanting to work out a deal with Russia. And then he got pushed to bomb Libya. And that's when the rift happened between him and Putin. And that is when Putin declared war on Obama, because he really thought that he was going to be able to get to this school of realism with him. And in fact, that was what was happening. Let's see how we can work together and deal with the Syria and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Israel without anybody getting hurt, opening up trade route and doing it in a way where we can begin to put money towards the national interest, infrastructure, education, healthcare, human life, and the environmental impact. All right, so that's the big lecture there. The other thing, I did a brief meditation last night about the Dayton, Ohio shooter, and the energy on that felt a little bit different than the energy for the shooting in El Paso. I think with the shooting in Dayton, Ohio, it might be more, it may not be politically motivated. It looked like in that case, I was picking up more that it had to do with feelings of rejection, etc. All right, so that's everything I have about where Putin's coming from, what happened when he had a falling out with Obama, where Tulsi Gabbard and where Flynn is at. And that's why Flynn said, everything I did because I thought it was going to be good for America. And it's because of this rising awareness by the military, not just of the human lives lost, but of the financial cost, and that war is expensive, and those expenses are needed closer to home. So with that, we're going to go ahead and open the floor so we can have a conversation about all of it, and we'll go ahead and do some tarot reading as well. All right, that was cool. What does everybody think? I got to read the comments because I had the comments turned off. Complicated, isn't it? We need a peace department. Absolutely. Do you think that there should be consequences for what Russia did? This is the question I have. I'd like to know if people think that Russia should pay for what it did, and if those damn, Chatty Cathy, it's always about the trade routes. But in Trump's vision of the trade routes, it's independent contractors, it's business making plenty of money, but they're not there representing any particular country, and they're just keeping the convoys moving. Just keep the convoys moving. Yeah, I don't like you either. You don't like me. It doesn't matter. Let's agree not to kill each other. It's business. So, I think that's where Tulsi Gabbard and Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn's a registered Republican. He used to be Democrat. My understanding is he switched, but you might be right. Regardless, he was really coming from the school of realism. Could somebody Google that? My understanding is that Flynn used to be a Democrat. If he flipped, he flipped. It started with T. Was Trump? I think Trump was a useful idiot as far as Putin was concerned. He was a useful idiot. He was angry. He was angry at the CIA for interfering with elections, for the bombing of Libya, for the demonizing of Russia, for demonizing him. You know, he feels like, I don't want to go around killing a bunch of people. I mean, yeah, occasionally he has to kill former KGB members, but, you know, he would rather just have us put this nasty aside and let him get his trade routes out. I agree not to drop the a nuclear bomb on you if you'll just let me get my trade routes out. We need to barter again. I think we need mediation for sure. I think that the international community needs to have a peace conference and talk about what we're willing to tolerate and what we're not what are we willing to compromise in order to allow people to get their trade out without us immediately going to war, which is what Tulsi Gabbard was saying. The problem I have with Tulsi Gabbard, and I believe that Linda G pointed this out, and I actually agree with Linda G now that I've looked into this. She was right, I was wrong, it happens. I think that what Linda was responding to and feeling, because I'm feeling it also a little bit, is this idea that there's money to be made. There's money to be made if you get on the ground floor with some of these contracting deals that are going to be coming in. And that's the queasy uncomfortable that she might have been, I don't want to speak for her, but that's the feeling I'm having when I go into this energy. Flynn's headed to jail. Yeah, that's true. But there is a part of him that really believed that this was going to be, I believe Flynn when he says that it was good for him and it was good. He thought he was doing it because he thought it would be good for America. They've been fighting in the Middle East for 4,000 years. Oh, probably longer. But going back to the Middle East, it takes you back to those old trade routes where people would trade from India up into what is now Iran, you know, Saudi Arabia trading with Iran and Iraq, and the split that happened amongst the Sunni and the Shia, the war, the continuing tensions between Israel and her neighbors, the trade routes between Russia and the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. This is what it all boils down to. It's good because now we're at the very least at a point in the conversation where we're a lot less confused about why all this happened than when it first happened. You know, what was going on? What was all of that about? But Putin's perspective is that we've been doing this to him for a long time. So he's like tit for tat. But the truth of the matter is he doesn't want to fight with us. He just wants to get his trade out. Hello, Puerto Rico. See, Puerto Rico is going to tell us how it's done because Puerto Rico is doing, they're being very good about taking care of themselves at this point. It's the mercenary stuff. Salome mentions the mercenary stuff. I agree. Is this really the direction? What's the potential problem with that? If you bring in mercenaries and you take out the U.S., and they don't have to follow the same rules, right? Tulsi, what about Tulsi Gabbard? Yeah, so I think with Tulsi Gabbard, it's business. She's going to make a ton of money on these trade routes if she starts to get involved in these personal contractor business, which seems to be where she's headed. Supposedly Putin is a huge environmentalist, but you know he's also bringing oil to Europe. So there's an environmental impact to that. So that kind of contradicts. But at the same time, Putin has talked about how he wants to protect the natural environment of Russia and Siberia. So yeah, looking at his actions, there seems to be a contradiction in what he does versus what he says. This is true. That was pointed out by Miranda. Yeah, more money, right? More money. Right now, a ton of people are making money off of war, the warmongers, the private contracts with Halliburton. But again, the school of realism, and there are a lot of liberals, by the way, to some extent, To some extent, Bernie Sanders is in agreement with this, that we can't continue to what he calls be policemen of the world. And Elizabeth Warren has said the same thing. They're also realist. The difference is between the right and the left is that the left acknowledges what this president did and acknowledges what Putin did and feels that there need to be consequences for stealing an election and that those consequences need to be serious. So that's the difference between the, but they agree that we need to move towards other options than just building it up militarily. Oh, you missed it. Well, sorry. We tried to give a. Is Tulsi in the house? Yes, she is, but I think she's moving towards the private sector. Yes, America is paying a lot of private companies to do a lot of private things, and children don't have school books in Oklahoma. Our roads and bridges are collapsing, and there's a feeling from the intelligence and the military that our country is basically completely bankrupted by war and military spending, and nobody has the heart to tell the American people that we're actually bankrupted and that we don't have the money to keep this up. So we really have no choice. We have to come up with a nonviolent solution because we can't continue to be throwing $500 million towards a new plane or whatever. We just don't have that kind of money to be divesting from, well, again, Putin, infrastructure, education, healthcare, human life, environmental impact. So even if you don't like him, he does make. Linda G doesn't trust Tulsi. I can understand why, actually. I think, like I said, Linda's a very good reader, and I think she makes a good point. But when you go into Tulsi's energy, when I looked at the cards, she thought she was being reasonable, right? Because it's the school of reason. Yes, it's the school of reason, but let's make no mistake about it. It's the school of reason that helps people get rich like mercenaries and allows Putin to get stronger and richer, getting his trade out. And that's what people are feeling uncomfortable about, particularly since what happened with this last election. Tulsi's interview was private. It doesn't surprise me because she's trying to build a coalition of people that are going to embrace this quote unquote realistic solution because of its economic benefits. And, it's going to economically benefit the private contractors, and it's going to be appealing to Americans because they're going to be told that they're going to start having more resources available at home. They're going to have to pay less taxes because there's going to be less war, and they're going to have more infrastructure, education, healthcare, human life, environmental impact. You can't argue with propaganda like that. Okay. You got to admit, Putin is good at propaganda. Yeah, he wants to return it to the old oligarchs where he's the king and the king rules the church. Just like the Queen rules the Church of England, Putin is going to rule the Russian church. He's going to be the head of that. And then under him will be the church and the oligarchs. And this is his vision for Russia. The benign dictator, right? He'll be benign, but if you make problems, then daddy can get nasty. So, he'll smack, he doesn't want to chop people's fingers off, honest. He doesn't want to put your head in a vice. He wants you to be a good child so that he doesn't have to poison your soup at the sushi restaurant. So he still sees himself as this no, I'm really benign. Just let me get my trade routes out. I'll give you infrastructure, education. You'll make a lot of money. The American people will be very, very happy. There'll be less race tensions because people will receive equal rights, etc. Just let me have my trade routes, and then I won't have to use this new missile, this supersonic missiles that I've developed that cannot be detected. He doesn't want to. It's too much money. It's more like a threat. I'm going to do this to you if you don't let me have my trade routes. So since you have no choice and I have no choice, since you're broke and I'm broke, let's work together. 60 trillion vanished from the economy. I don't know about that. Absolutely ridiculous. Military spending is out of control. Yeah, I mean, this is why the liberals actually, we agree with, we were talking about this in the 1980s during nuclear proliferation when I was marching in the streets against nuclear proliferation. But that doesn't mean Putin gets a free pass, and it doesn't mean that Trump gets a free pass. Polonium poisoning, yeah. Trump using the same propaganda. He was a useful idiot, and now Putin is, look, we're done with Trump now. That's as far as he's concerned. We're done. Now let's negotiate directly with you. You can't continue this war with me. You will lose. You're bankrupted. Your roads and bridges are collapsing. Global warming, you're going to have to start building those walls. You're going to have to start building some kind of infrastructure to protect yourself from the global warming, or you're going to lose New York. You're going to lose your southern coast. That's where your money should go. Plant trees, save your country, because you're going to be underwater. You've got 2.5 years. You've got 2.5 years, or it's goodbye New York. It's goodbye New Jersey. It's goodbye Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Alabama. We need to start building levees. That's the argument. Mitch, it's hard to like Mitch, but it's interesting. When I get into Mitch's head, he talks about what a victim he is and how everybody's always dumping on him and what he sacrificed for this party. And he feels like he should be the president. And instead, he's defending this idiot who doesn't deserve to be the president. He deserves to be the president. He thinks that he's the real president in some respects. 2.5 years goes fast. Yeah, that's what the prediction is when I go into the energy, is that it's going to be a very harsh 2.5 years if we don't start dealing with the problem and building levees, etc. Yeah, Hawaii is also going to have some challenges. It's just, again, realism. What I don't like about it, and what I understand people are concerned about, is that he's taking what is a realist argument and he's spinning it for his own advantage. And that's the issues people are having with him. It doesn't surprise me if other people are making deals like Murkowski with Russia. It doesn't surprise me. But I'm really glad to deliver this particular remote today, so it helps us all stand back and say, oh, that's what this whole thing was about. That's why Obama's going through his existential crisis. Of course, with Obama, if he has an existential crisis, would any of us ever know? Michelle told us he will have a quiet existential crisis and continue to monitor the situation. Like he's such a calming force. That's what I like about him. 30,000 blue tarps on the roofs in Puerto Rico. Where is the money? I don't know what that's about. Nuclear is one side only. The Navajo people don't have running water. They have to pay for water to be hauled. Exactly. So it's that kind of infrastructure that we need. We've got a lot of problems here at home. Also, if we spent more time taking care of ourselves and building infrastructure, it would be, theoretically well-paying jobs for Americans. We need to. This is what caused Rome to fall. Was they overextended their borders. They couldn't continue to keep the war machine going, and Rome collapsed. And that's basically what the American military is trying to gently say to us, that they don't have the money, they don't have the funds, they're tired. And also, they're the ones that have to notify the families if a soldier's died. It's not working. The wars have been going on for too long. They've bankrupted America, and no one has the heart to tell the American people we're bankrupt. We can't continue this. We can't continue to go on like this. Sorry about the buffering. I do see it. All right. So if people want, we can go ahead and we can throw some cards. I think we've been talking for, how long have we been talking? We've got about 500 people here. I'm really glad. Well, we've been here for almost 40 minutes, so we'll probably do 1 or 2 throws and then we'll call it quits. But I'm so glad we did this because I saw all that stuff last night during the remote where everything, it kind of tied the knots together, and I thought, oh, that's what this all about. That's why Spirit was showing me Mongolia and the infrastructure, and that's why we got that Russian propaganda. He's trying to get us towards let's be reasonable. The other thing about Putin, about why it's let's be reasonable, is because he's been caught. The president's been caught. Everybody's in prison or going to prison. And so now we hear from Putin, let's be reasonable. Can we talk about it? Come on, let's negotiate a new deal. Come on, we can't keep this going. So there's also a feeling in the energy when you go into Putin's energy that it's a little defensive now. Okay, we'll get rid of the useful idiots. Well, he served his purpose. Let's get rid of Trump. He served now. Let's deal directly. This is what this was about. I showed you that we can create just as much problems in your elections as you've created for me with your intelligence agencies. So let's stop the BS. Let's get intermediaries in here. Let's get a contract. Let's make business. You're business people. Let's. I thought that Trump was going to be a businessman and he was going to be good for business. Let's open the trade routes. Let's everybody start doing business. Let's create some ground rules. Who knows? Maybe in time we might even be friends. Take it or leave it. That's what we're dealing with. Okay, so the cards. We've got requests to throw the cards. I'm happy to do that. And people want me to throw cards on the Electoral College. I would be happy to do that. I'm not quite sure, though, what you want me to look at for the Electoral College. Yeah, the Russian economy is the size of Italy. They lost. They couldn't continue to maintain the financial cost of maintaining the Soviet Union and the arms race. So it was a new deal, right, where we were supposed to have open trade and trade routes. This is what Putin is talking about, as best I understand it, as the remote viewer. I mean, I'm hired to be the remote viewer, and I only can tell you what I see. Is that this was going back to what Putin was talking about when they agreed to collapse, when the Soviet Union collapsed because they had extended their borders beyond what they could financially afford to do. And they were going to be allowed to have good trade routes, and it was going to help rebuild. It was going to build the Russian economy and create a new relationship with the West. And that didn't happen. And instead, a feeling that that partnership didn't take place, it collapsed, and then this was the consequence. Oh, well, we do away with the Electoral College. Okay, let's take a look at that. All right, I'm going to call on white light protection for myself and the viewing audience as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records of the information persons we'll be looking at today. We call on our spirit guides and good angels to be with us. Give us the wisdom and clarity needed to empower our viewers to make the best decisions for themselves, for the people they love, for the planet. And with that, I say amen. All right, let's look at the Electoral College. Spirit, what can you tell us about the Electoral College? Are we going to be evolving beyond the Electoral College? There is a beautiful, peaceful energy that's sweeping over the earth. People are done fighting. People want to listen to music. They want to dance again. They're tired. And a lot of Southerners are annoyed by the stereotype that they're all ignorant racist bigots. And they're starting to get offended by that stereotype. It's just, they say that's not true. All right, so we're entering into a situation where you can see the Three of Cups moving in, and that is the card of celebration, dancing. It suggests that good times are ahead. What's pushing through is mastery. So yeah, I think we're going to get a treaty. I think we're going to get some kind of a deal with Russia, and probably people are going to hammer out some kind of contract. Also, if we're talking about the Electoral College, we could be moving towards eradicating the Electoral College. It's going to be a very slow process. It could take up 7 to 9 years before it's ready to be decided on, but you can see the mastery card is pushing through. Where we are at right now, the eyes are opening. So I think it's a good time for us, in the sense that if the eyes are opening, it tells us that we are taking a look at ourselves in ways we haven't in the past. The truth is all out. Everything's been regurgitated. Everything's been vomited out. We all know the truth now. We now know why Putin did this. We all know why he was angry. We all know now why why Obama is feeling the way he, we're all knowing now the extent to which they interfered, and we're also knowing to what extent Trump was a part of it. More than likely he had debts, and by creating peace or good contracts with these countries, he was able to pay back debts, or some kind of feeling of responsibility he had for paying back a debt. And then new growth, so in August. So this is crossing the High Priestess card. The truth is coming out in August. So more information coming out. God dang, folks. Sitting in the third house is the Emperor's card, but it's also William Barr, and that's what you sit in, what you marinate in. William Barr or justice. It could be William Barr, it could be justice, but it's in relationship to Trump, because Trump's card is in the fourth house. And again, what's crossing him in the near future is rejecting an offer. I think it was Mary's Table. She said, I've never seen a more stubborn person in the cards in my entire life. Yeah, I mean, we see this a lot with Trump refusing to take offers. The fact that he is in opposition now with cards that I associate with William Barr leads me to think that William Barr may be coming in to the picture, and also I keep hearing hamstringing. So there's going to be a feeling that William Barr is no longer working for Trump, and Trump realizes it. Remember, there was going to be a falling out between him and William Barr, and that's what I'm seeing here. Where we're at right now, people want to get back to the business of the nation. Money, contracts. So there's big money to be made in the private sector, but a feeling like the military is not an efficient way of us using our funds and our resources. Hopes and fears that a healing or a resolution can take place, and then the final outcome. Scholarship, intellectuals, academics, people that can come together to create a reasonable way to allow for trade and partnership and business in a polemic world, in a world where people don't always agree. We can agree to disagree, and it doesn't mean that we're at war with each other. It doesn't mean we don't respect each other, but we cannot bully the world anymore. That's the feeling. And Russia cannot continue to bully us. So scholarship enters in. In terms of how I would interpret those cards with the Electoral College, the fact that the outcome is Hermit, probably we're getting rid of the Electoral College, because Hermit would suggest one person, one vote. And the clarification that the karmic wheel changed, that basically we're maturing, or we're evolving beyond it. So some states want to get rid of the Electoral College, some don't. It looks like there's a slow, steady change in the Electoral College over the coming years, and I don't exactly know what that means, but that's how it looks. Interesting. So yeah, eventually we will evolve beyond the Electoral College. Not everybody wants to get rid of the Electoral College, though, because they're worried about getting resources to certain remote areas in states that maybe are poor or they feel are underserved. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? The fugitive manhunt in Canada. I was asked about that. I don't usually do crime. I don't usually do active crime. I kind of let the police deal with that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just pass that question. Yeah, Maryland, I can see it passing in Maryland. The manhunt in Canada. Ugh, okay, I'll do the manhunt in Canada, but I can't guarantee anything. Let's take a look here. Spirit wants to tell us about the manhunt in Canada. It looked to me at one point when I went into this remote that they were in hiding and that they were running out of resources like food. So if they surrender, it's because they're hungry and because if you haven't eaten for 3 days or 4 days and you're holed up in an area, an abandoned area, and eventually hunger will drive you out and you'll have to surrender. It feels to me like that. Not a good ending. Not a good ending. 9 of Swords moving in with the Ace of Cups. No deal. No deal. The police is right over them. The military is over. It's over. It looks like they could surrender and ask for help because they just keep talking about they don't have resources. You can't go to the grocery store and buy any food. It's over. You can see here the inverted King of Pentacles moving in, which is a card. He doesn't move the King of Pentacles, and a celebration. I think this story is going to be over in a couple of days just because, like I said, they couldn't get food and they'd run out of resources. They're going to be openly communicating. A 10 of Pentacles inverted. And the healing card comes in. They only have 2 choices at this point. It would be either they're feeling like either suicide or surrender, and so it may be surrender. That's how it looks. Wow, human beings have the capacity to get into some very dark places, and it's beyond my comprehension. Okay, I think that we have time for one more throw before we call it a day. I told myself I would be with y'all for about an hour this beautiful Sunday. So, the 25th Amendment. Will Pence be issuing the 20 articles of, if he keeps rejecting, it's possible. Can you see he keeps getting that 4 of Cups? Will we be looking at Article 25? Will we be looking, will Trump receive Article 25, or will he simply agree to resign? God, he does not want that tax return to be public knowledge. So it's possible for him to resign. He's very embarrassed. The worst thing in the world you can do to Trump is to prove publicly that he's a loser. It's his greatest fear, right? It's his primordial fear. He doesn't want to be a loser. I'm a nobody. I don't want people to find out I'm a nobody. So documents that can prove publicly that he's a loser and a nobody is probably his greatest nightmare. The Hierophant moves in, right? The Hierophant is the Constitution, justice prevailing, and a loss for somebody else. So the Constitution, again, as the base card moving in, where he is at right now, probably working on legal documents or some kind of documents. There's a feeling of dealing with business and the issues of business, but you can see here 5 of Pentacles. So Pence is certainly appearing in the card chart as more actively involved than he has been in the past. He's presenting as, you better figure out how DC runs because you're going to be the one running it. I really think that we're looking at a Pence presidency. It might not be more than 9 months or a year, but we're really moving towards what could be a Pence presidency. And you can see here with Pence's card, the 2 of Swords moving, the 5 of Pentacles moving in, and it crosses him. And that's to walk away from a situation or abandon a situation that seems hopeless. He's concerned about his health and stress. He's had some issues with stress. He's had some issues possibly with taking anti-anxiety or sleep medication. There's been some evidence to suggest that. So we're a little bit concerned about his health. Inverted Strength card in the 4th house, and what he sits in or marinates in, the business of DC. Somebody sat Pence down, and there's some very serious talking to. Gosh, it's almost like the FBI is in charge. You know, it's like people are getting interrogated by people in the intelligence agencies, the FBI. There are people being questioned, and they're emboldened in ways that the public might not know anything about. It's over. My concern here with this card, again, death or not going anywhere, and a strength card, a health card, makes me worried that it's not just Trump that has health challenges, that Pence himself is going through challenges. It's like, does this guy have what it takes to step up to the plate and lead, moving into emperor mode, trying to be the executive branch, right? Trying to be logical. What's around him, anger, fiery, falling outs with possibly Trump, feeling of betrayal by Trump, feeling backstabbed by people who went into the, Pence, I think, is the only one left, right? And Kellyanne. So there's a feeling of anger around this situation, possibly a military feeling or policing around this situation, the hope and the fear, the contract, the New Deal, communication by ground, or a physical movement from of a message of some type. It's probably for some reason William Barr is involved. For some reason William Barr is involved. It's kind of like William Barr is a bizarre person to read on, because on one aspect he looks like the angel of death. You know, in the cards he's starting to look like the angel of death. Like he shows up to help Trump and assist Trump, and then as things roll along, he evolves into the angel of death. The final outcome, the inverted king of pentacles. There's something that's going to happen where there's going to be, or already has been, a falling out between Barr and Trump, and it has to do with the fact that Barr's loyalties are more with the intelligence agency than with this presidency, and unfortunately the president is starting to realize that. Wow. Pretty wild. August, there's going to be a lot coming out in August. We keep getting the high priestess, which is that the eyes are opened. All right, everybody. I think we did it. I think we've done about an hour. No, Nancy was waiting for President Trump to sign documents that he was not going to cause another government shutdown, and she's also waiting for the release of the taxes so that she has leverage. But they've now reached the majority of Democrats, and so we're going to be moving. It's actually going to be much higher than that, but we're moving towards impeachment hearings, which is what the cards had said a year and a half ago. Barr oversees the Justice Department, not the CIA. He might have been CIA in the past. I don't know. All right, are we done, everybody? Did we do okay? Everybody thank Pina Sperber for her help today in being our moderator. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I think it's an important conversation where we are realistically headed, and the fact that our country cannot continue, we can't financially keep it going. And the military, the generals, seem to be saying, America, we're broke. We can't. The generals are saying, we can't maintain this. We can't maintain this. So we're going to have to work on a treaty. That's how I would interpret it. All right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a happy Sunday. Try and get some, have some fun today. And I guess I'll see you next time. You'll probably see me tomorrow since it's my day off. All right. Peace out, everyone. Blessings, love, and light.